fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
How my wife and I got into a fight with some 20-year-olds. The embarrassing story. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, like diamonds, back again, Salt Strong Unchurched. I'm hoping that what I'm about to share can help someone out there. I always pray before every one of these podcasts that what I'm about to share will hit that right person, hopefully save you from a regret or embarrassment. And you will know why here in just a second. This is 100% true. Just happened here recently. And my wife and I have done quite a bit of self-reflection on this. The whole thing, it really was kind of not a fist fight or anything. It could have led into that. Thankfully, it didn't. But this whole little scuffle happened so fast. And it was so silly looking back, but also so easy to fall into that trap of kind of stooping down to another person. So here is the back story. So we live on a lake here in Central Florida, and one of our favorite things to do on Sunday evenings is to go down to the dock and watch the sunset and just talk about the day, talk about the upcoming week. My wife and I go down there. A lot of times the kids will come down and sometimes be playing in the water, sometimes just be hanging out in the dock. In this case, this past Sunday, Jackson was sitting there tying knots, and Savannah and Shauna were kind of in and out. Shauna's looking for animals on the near the beach, and Savannah was in one of the hammocks, and we're just having a beautiful Sunday. So Sundays, to put it in perspective, this is kind of a popular lake, but on Sundays, everyone puts their boat in the afternoon, and then usually by 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, everyone's kind of leaving. That's when the ramps get packed again. Everyone's kind of pulling out and going, you got to, start the week off on Monday. No one's out there until 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, like they might be on Saturdays sometimes, which can get out of control. So we love Sundays. It's so peaceful. And we had just like the perfect breeze. It was just beautiful out. So we're looking forward to it, right? And we're out there. We've been out there for probably an hour. And all of a sudden we see this boat come over with some young kids, look like, just 20-year-olds, a couple guys, couple girls, and they anchor right next to our neighbor's dock, which we thought was kind of odd because we got this, it's a massive lake. And and normally most people just go out in the middle of the lake and just kind of drift. I was like, why are they anchoring right here? And did they not see the massive gator that was there just not that long ago? But it very, very odd. So already we're kind of like scratching our heads saying, all right, well, what are these young kids doing over here? And next thing you know, they're like blaring music, and I'm talking about F-bombs being dropped. I'm talking about the N-word. I think I counted like 15 times in some of these rap songs, and these are like skinny little white dudes. Just inappropriate stuff. And so we got Jackson out there. So I was like, man, I don't want to leave our dock because of these obnoxious kids. So we ignored them. And we turned up some 80s music, and they cannot hear this, by the way. So this is just more, I put it up on the boat and had it angled towards us, really just to block out the sound of these youngsters blaring their rap music and saying some pretty inappropriate stuff that we could kind of hear echoing over. And that was kind of it. Like, it was fine. We couldn't hear them. They couldn't hear us. It was all good. And then one of the young girls was on a float and very intoxicated and was basically just kind of floating away and going with the breeze while the boat's anchored. She's coming really close, to our dock. I mean, to the point, we could, toss something at her close. And she's now yelling to the people in the boat and using every word you can possibly imagine. She's not happy that they've let her get this far. And so she's screaming at them. Now we can certainly hear this. There's no amount of loud music that we could use to stop this. And once again, she's right there in front of us. And I think she might have had too much to drink. She might not even seen it. It's like, I was like, does this girl not know we're here? And our kids are literally, Jackson at this point was at the end of the dock looking at this girl like, what is she screaming about? Thankfully, doesn't understand what the F-bombs and all that stuff is yet. But I was just like, what in the world? And so like, we're holding our breath. Like, we're like, all right, please just stop. And she just kept going and going. And like, I'm talking like really, really foul stuff coming out of this young girl's mouth. And my wife is like fuming at this point. And I'm just kind of like, all right, we're going to keep calm here. We're just going to leave. And next thing you know, my wife says, hey, can you please cut it out in this kind of tone? Hey, can you please cut it out with all the cursing? We have kids in the dock. That was it. And at this point, this young girl now, which I think kind of startled her, right, that we were that close. And I really don't think she just knew what was going on. And all of a sudden now, ball's in her court. And at this point, had it been me in my 20s, I would have been humiliated, embarrassed, and probably said, oh my gosh, guys, I am so sorry. I did not know you're there. Let me just swim back to the boat. But instead, she took a different stance. And I'm talking like went off saying, do you think you are? You think you own this lake? And just throwing more F-bombs out than you could possibly imagine. Once again, within 20, 25 feet of our little 5-year-old boy who's sitting there like mouth dropped, like, why is this girl screaming? And now my mouth is dropped. My wife, like, who's really, really calm person. I've never seen her like get in a fight or do anything crazy now. And she's just in her chair. She stands up. Mama Bear is angry and she goes after this girl, not physically, but saying, you better get out of here right now. And by the way, it is illegal to be cursing and on someone's property. It is one of these old school rules here in our county, which is pretty funny. We have all this, documented on camera and stuff. We're not going to go after these kids or anything unless they ever came back and tried to vandalize or do anything to our place. But it all happened so fast. So my wife is going after her, verbally, kind of attacking her, just saying, get out of here right now. And once again, this other girl had opportunity to end it. So did we. We could have just walked away and left. In hindsight, I wish we just had. And she just keeps going after us. And I'm talking about using every curse word imaginable. And oh my gosh. So we did stoop down to her level. And this is the embarrassing part. And, we never cursed. Obviously, we never curse, especially never in front of our kids. But we definitely just, said some things that I regret, but basically calling her a trashy person, and please get out of our area. And so the whole thing, it just went out of control. And then, her little boyfriend comes over. Now he's flicking everyone off on our dock and saying every F word possible, every imaginable way. And I was just like, oh, now I'm like sick to my stomach. So finally they leave. They realize at least there's someone smart in the boat and realize that they're wrong, and they leave. And the whole way we can hear them just echoing off the lake. F you got, just out of control. And I'm just like, let's take a breath. And what just happened there? And if you've ever been in a fight before, it's been many years since I've been in like a legitimate fight. And, just your heart rate rises, like something changes. It's like a primitive thing, how we're wired as humans, where we just go in this fight mode. And in many cases, not even thinking straight. And especially if, your wife or your kids are involved. And that's kind of how we felt. This is not to make it right at all. I'm still embarrassed by what we did. Even though we didn't do anything technically wrong, we definitely stooped to their level, right? What we should have done, here, the lessons learned. One, the whole thing could have been probably changed if my wife had just started the conversation out in a loving tone. Even with people that we don't love and certainly not impressed with. This person was obviously very trashy to even be doing that in front of people. And then to literally scream that many explicitives in front of really young kids, it obviously shows that not the best person. So even though we don't love this person, we could have probably changed the whole thing by starting off in a loving tone. Maybe instead of saying, hey, do you mind keeping the F-bombs down or whatever, instead saying, hey, do you need any help out there? And just starting it that way. We're not even talking about the curse words, just saying, hey, do you need help? And it could have had a whole different conversation. I don't know. Maybe she would have yelled F you, and who knows? But anyhow, start conversations off in a loving tone. At least, even if we had done that and then she had still attacked us verbally, we could have at least left with our heads held high and said, you know what, there's nothing we could do to help someone like that. But number two is to be quiet and let them bury themselves. Had we just let it go at the first one and just probably just taken our kids up, it just would have been over so much easier. And she probably, I don't know, maybe or not, would have just felt guilty instead of us talking back to her at all. Even though we never cursed or never said anything really inappropriate, there was still some yelling on our side about just getting out of here with, your trashy self. And do you not see that there's kids right here? And they obviously had zero care in the world. Number three, in terms of lessons learned, is just to be patient, to take a deep breath, to not let that primitive fight mode come in where all of a sudden you start saying or swinging or doing something dumb. I mean, so many fights and so many probably arrests and stuff could be avoided if someone just took a breath and was patient and held their tongue. The next one is to be loving, right? And just to treat everything with love, even though we don't love him. It was crazy. Jackson, who's 5 years old after this whole thing happened, and we're sitting there just my wife and I, well, what in the world just happened? And trying to protect him from hearing all this. And he literally goes, why was that girl so angry? Why can't she be more loving? That was the first thing out of his mouth. And it melted my heart. I was just like, oh my gosh, here it is. A young child sees the answer to all this. Why these adults are sitting here having a yelling fight over something stupid, right? That didn't even make any sense. And a little 5-year-old cuts to the core in just one question. Why is she mean? Why can't she just be more loving? Wow. And then the next one, and this is something that we did later that night, and even the next day as we just kind of talked through this, is to forgive them. And then just as importantly, to forgive ourselves, right? So to forgive yourself if you have done something dumb. And then the final one, and this is really what just kind of put it at rest and at ease for me, is to pray for them. Right. These are people who are obviously troubled. I mean, I did some dumb stuff in my 20s, but to act like that, and I'm guessing that was not their first time cursing and playing this kind of music and just treating people like that. I mean, that's crazy. And I'm guessing, just my guess, that they have, families and parents who maybe talk and act like that and get into fistfights and just don't really have much respect for people's properties or kids or family life or anything like that. And so I pray for them, and I spend a lot of time praying for these people. Like I said, we got pictures and video of them, and just kind of looking at them and just saying some prayers over them. Now, here's the craziest part. So that same Sunday morning, we did church at home. My wife ended up getting COVID, and two of the kids did, and so we did church at home, and we listened to it outside while we picked weeds. We had this one little bed that was just destroyed with weeds. I'm like, you could barely see anything. We let it go way too long, and so we spent a couple hours pulling weeds and listened to multiple church services. And then I went and read my daily Bible. I did a podcast on this before called The 1 Year Bible is the name of the book, The 1 Year Bible. It's where if you basically just read, 10 to 15 minutes every day, you've read the whole Bible in a year. So it sets you up per day. And it says September 1st, September 2nd, and it actually has the different books for you to read, which ends up being around 10 to 15 minutes. So on that day, and I'd read it that morning. So I'd read it that morning before all this stuff happened. I went back because in my head, I was like, man, I could have sworn there was something like this in the Proverbs. So every day there's a proverb for you to read. This is crazy. So this is that same morning I read this. And I've had so many cases where God put something in front of my face that I needed to hear. Maybe like this podcast for you, and maybe you don't make the same mistake I did. I mean, he was basically warning me what was about to happen. This is no lie. This is the proverb that was designated on that day that I read that morning. Proverbs 21, 23 through 24. Those who guard their mouths and their tongues keep themselves from calamity. The proud and arrogant person, mocker is his name, behaves with insolent fury. Wow. Wow. I'm going to read that again. This is after I just shared with you the story. This is what God put in front of me. And I read this that morning, and still it's crazy how quickly we get caught up in bad things. I mean, they're just pulling us into that. And like I said, I don't blame my wife for saying something, and especially when she just started attacking us and saying all that in front of our kids. We needed to do something. I think the better move would have been to what this said is guard our mouths and our tongues, and have just turned around and left, right? And at that point, it's on them. She can say whatever she wants. She's a bad person. We never stoop down on their level. So those who guard their mouths and their tongues keep themselves from calamity. The proud and arrogant person, mocker is his name, behaves with insolent fury, which is about how we felt with fury and rage about how could this person be that naive and that rude and that just trashy to be able to say stuff like this in front of young kids without a care in the world. But once again, that's their problem. We're praying for them. We'll continue to pray for them. And if we ever see them again, I'll just flat out apologize to them, regardless if they want to cuss us out and flick us off or not, just for stupid. I won't say stupid down their level, but just for even engaging with them. So I hope this is helpful. I hope you don't make the same mistake. I mean, that proverb there is so powerful, right? Taking a sip of coffee real quick. That proverb is so powerful because it applies to so many things in life. So many times where someone engages us or is trying to get underneath our skin, just let it go. Just keep your mouth shut. Keep the tongue inside. Let them bury themselves and let them feel the guilt of what they have said. Don't let it be you like it was for us. Like I said, I'm glad we didn't say anything really hurtful or hateful. Just the fact that we even replied and got into this little yelling match was honestly just embarrassing and stupid. And thank goodness that we have a God who loves us and a God who forgives and one that teaches us the right and the wrong thing to do, and even gives us warnings sometimes, like we received, and did not obey them. So I love you guys. If this was helpful, let me know. If you have any stories similar, let me know. joe@saltstrong.com. And if you ever see us out in the lake, know that we will be waving and loving and open arms at any time you might ever want to come by. But please don't curse in front of our kids. Love you guys. Have a great week, a great Sunday if you're listening here on Sunday. And like I said, let me know if there's ever anything I can do to pray over you. And I hope you enjoy these real stories, as embarrassing as they are. And I'm sure I'll have many more to come very soon. I just felt called to share this one with you since it was so relevant, and that whole proverb thing that day was just, it gave me like goosebumps. I was like, man, he already knows what's supposed to happen that day, right? I mean, isn't that powerful if you think about it? Wow. So talk to you guys in the next episode.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul. It was